hello, and welcome to Freedom Speak podcast, the mouthpiece for Freedom Speak International, an organization built for and by the immigrant community in Canada to articulate and amplify issues that matter to us. Today, we are privileged to host Patrick Egwu, a freelance journalist based in Toronto. Patrick is Nigerian. He is a friend and a colleague, and one of the best journalists I know. In today's topic, we explore internal conflict in Africa as a push factor driving immigration and what the African diaspora can do about it. Seeing that destinations in Europe and the Americas are closing immigration pathways, countries in focus will include Nigeria, Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. We start in Nigeria, where a long-running conflict in the north seems to be escalating. Welcome to the studio, Patrick. It's my pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we should be having this conversation, and especially now that things in Nigeria's north seem to be getting out of control. So please, what exactly is happening in Nigeria?
Thanks for having me. To have this conversation, and I assume you're talking about the conflict in northwestern Nigeria and northeast Nigeria.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, which has been going on for some decades now. I mean, for many years. The Boko Haram has been there in the northeast, carrying out their campaign of violence. Targeting locals, abducting, killing people. There's something with armed militias who are locally known as bandits who operate in northwestern Nigeria, who attack both Christians and Muslims, abduct people for ransoms, and the motives are just, quest for dominance, greed, just to make money out of it. Yeah, I mean, it has been there, it has been ongoing, it has been escalating like recently. You must have heard about the US government's proposed intervention to, including the threat by Donald Trump to launch a military campaign or intervene or take a military action if the government doesn't fix the issue. So, I mean, yeah, there's that. And, there's also the case of non-gunmen, who operate in that part of the country, kind of just attacking people randomly. And the government has been unable to fix it. The security forces have been unable to address this. And that is why it keeps going. That is why it keeps escalating. And that is why the international community, the US, the UK, and the Canadian government have been kind of advocating for an end to the violence.
Now, the reason why this topic is actually very important, it is that the question we ask is why now? Because the conflict has been long running. It has been going on for years. And just recently, we hear President Trump saying this conflict is religious, that there is the Muslims are attacking Christians and things like that. But what exactly is happening? Because we seem to be hearing different narratives.
Yeah, it's been going on like for some years, and I don't think it's a religious crisis. Like I said, both Christians and Muslims are attacked, and it's been going on for some years. So maybe the US government felt this is the right time to intervene. This is the right time to kind of take a strong action, against the terrorists and the bandits who attack Christian communities, which is the reality. Yeah, it has been going on, but there's been a lot of advocacies by Christian groups, by international organizations, Open Door, and a whole lot of that. They're kind of trying to lobby and advocate for the US intervention on and remember back in 2020 during the first term of Donald Trump, he designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern, and just recently, I think 2 weeks ago, he also took that action to designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern, which kind of lists countries that kind of engage in religious persecution. There are a bunch of countries there: Myanmar, China, Nigeria has also joined the list. So yeah, it has been going on for some time. The government has been, I think, why the US government is trying to intervene is because the Nigerian government has been unable to fix it. Successive governments have been unable to fix it, and you can't keep on, carrying out your campaign of violence against innocent, communities and people who go about, trying to live their lives peacefully and stuff like that.
Yeah, I hear you. And I know the destabilizing effect that long-running conflict has had in many countries in Africa. But I've been doing some groundwork, asking questions and digging and interviewing Nigerians. Nigeria is one of the most populous countries in the world. And they also contribute to a large number of the diaspora communities in, say, America, North America, in Europe, and elsewhere. And a lot of people seem to think that there is an ulterior motive to the US wanting to get involved in this conflict right now. What are your thoughts about that?
I can't speak authoritatively on that, whether the US has, ulterior motives for trying to get involved, but everybody has, hidden interests. And that's what I would say, whether China, Russia, or America, trying to intervene in ongoing issues in Africa, whether politically or diplomatically or the use of military. Everybody has an interest. Nigeria has a long-standing relationship with the US, a long-standing relation in terms of trade. I mean, the US is one of the biggest investors in Nigeria in terms of health. You talk about the USAID, which was recently scraped off by Donald Trump, and the investment they've done in terms of health, fighting diseases, polio, malaria, and all that. Apart from that, in kind of trying to engage Nigeria politically. So there's been a long-standing relationship. So the intervention could be from that standpoint of the US trying to help or trying to intervene in an ongoing issue in one of its partner countries. It
Yes.
could also be to kind of deter China's approach, China's, recent involvement in Nigeria. China is kind of making headway, in terms of establishing. Of course, Nigeria has a long-standing relationship with China.
Yes.
China is one of Nigeria's biggest trading partners, same with the US. So, I mean, the US could be, as a way of asserting control, asserting their influence on the country, Nigeria
Right.
being the largest, the populous country on the continent, kind of trying to deter China from, you know, taking control or dominating Nigerian affairs in terms of politics, in terms of trade engagement, in terms of partnership and stuff like that. So that's why I say that I can't authoritatively say,
Right. Right.
that there's an ulterior motive why the US wants to engage in Nigeria. It could just be out of the long-standing relationship, to kind of help helpless communities that have been attacked by armed men, or it could be for whatever reason that the top guys at the White House,
Think that this is a great time to intervene. Now I hear you, and yeah, I think I would agree to a certain extent. But now, I wonder what is it that the African diaspora can do, especially Nigeria, to leverage this rekindled interest in what is happening in your country to mitigate the effects of changing immigration policies that is affecting those of us from Africa that are running to Europe and America and elsewhere for safety.
Africans in diaspora or Nigerians in diaspora, I think the extent to which they can help in terms of policy formulation and kind of engaging the government to kind of, fix stuff, ongoing issues in the country I think it's kind of limited. Of course, they, offer advice, offer suggestions. I mean, they live in scenic climes where things work. You have them in North America, in Europe, in Asia, kind of engaging in business, in academics, in research, and all that. So it's to kind of, I think, from my own point of view, kind of engage the government and see how, more like policy dialogue, debates, to see how they can kind of offer solutions and basically on how to fix the ongoing issues. But I think the last, I mean, those with the those who would make the last call are, respective governments in each African country. For example, in Nigeria, the ruling governments are the ones to kind of, take the last action. They can only take suggestions and advice from those in the diaspora. But the last call is for them. I mean, they hold the cards and they definitely know how to play it and, how best to engage or what the level of engagement and the kind of advice they receive from those in the diaspora. So that's why it's kind of limited. They can only do
They cannot do much. But we have had a president, Tinubu, Nigerian president, he comes out fighting and saying, no, this conflict is, he seems to imply that the conflict, Nigeria is in control, that he is in charge and they can handle this, whatever is going on. He also came out saying that this is not a religious conflict. So anyone thinking that this is a religious conflict maybe knows something that they're not telling the Nigerian government. What are your feelings about that? Does the population in Nigeria feel that the government is in control?
Just to say that no leader would tell you that he's not under control.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Everyone would definitely come to defend their government and say, hey, we're trying to fix this. Hey, we are partnering with this. The security are in charge. And all that. But the reality on ground is a stark difference from what they say, in the media and, what they tell the world that they are doing.
Yeah.
Of course, they are in the government house surrounded by guards and, all kinds of security protecting them. They are not living in the rural areas where these guys attack, so they don't know what is actually going on there. The people who actually feel the impact of this are those, living in the rural areas who
That's
are
right.
always, the first victims whenever these guys attack. Yeah, the reality on ground is kind of different. I've written, as a journalist, I've written a lot about attacks by gunmen on Christian communities in Nigeria. I've traveled, during field work to kind of speak with victims who have been affected, impacted. And from what I see during my trips, tell you that not much is being done, in trying to fix this.
Could you describe for me, for the sake of our listeners, how life is like for people living in the North that are experiencing this constant conflict? How are people living?
Yeah, what I'm just going to say or clarify is that not the whole, Nigeria is a diverse country and very large. So not everywhere in the North is kind of affected by the conflict, right? There are communities living peacefully, going about their duties and living their lives peacefully without facing any attacks. And there are those who are displaced by the ongoing conflict, by gunmen and by terrorists in the northeast and in the northwest. Visited communities displaced by the gunmen, by the bandits. So, a whole community, for example, a whole community would be displaced and they would leave everything behind and move to safer grounds where, they set up camps to live. So they abandon their farmlands, they abandon their cattle, they abandon everything they have and move to safer grounds with their family and start up new life because their homes have been raided and kind of ransacked by the bandits. So life for them is difficult, is tough. They live just on the thread, kind of hoping for a better tomorrow, hoping that things come back to normal so that they can go back home. So for those people who are directly impacted, life for them is kind of shattered and there's little they can do about it. Their cries for help has not been answered by the government. And yeah, that's the situation with them basically in the northern part of Nigeria for those directly affected. So they're always on the run. Whenever there's an attack, they pack, a few things that they can and move. Some have been directly affected in the sense that family members have been killed. The father has been killed, children have been killed, mothers have been raped, daughters have been raped. Those who are lucky escape alive. Those who are not get killed in the process. So those who are alive kind of leave to bury their dead and mourn their dead, without any help whatsoever from the government. So that's the grim picture for those in the North who are directly affected by the conflict.
So now, but what kind of conflict is this? And the reason I ask is because one struggles to understand why, for so long, these attacks have continued. They are sporadic, right? But what is driving the aggressors to attack? What do they want from the people?
Boko Haram, for example, they've been operating in northeast Nigeria since 2009 after the killing of their leader. So basically what Boko Haram, for example, wants is to establish an Islamic caliphate in northern Nigeria, where they will impose Sharia law, govern people in that region. And they were kind of successful in 2014 when they did that, impose Sharia law in some regions and declared
Right.
an Islamic caliphate until the military, after some months, I think about 7, 8 months, they kind of held control of the region before the military kind of intervened. And there was a bloody clash in the military and the terrorists before the military took over those caliphates. And is for Boko Haram, the motive for them has been an Islamic caliphate in northern Nigeria. And to, yeah, and to impose Sharia in this region, Sharia law to live and govern and govern the people in the area, whether they are Christians or Muslims. For the armed bandits who operate in northwestern Nigeria, the motive for them has been quest for dominance, right?
Right. Right.
And their attacks has been motivated by greed. So they abduct people for ransom, and those who fail to pay ransom are killed. More than $20 million has been paid in ransom by the government in a period of about, not only the government, by private individuals in a period of about 10 years. And this is according to official data. Yeah, so that's basically the motivation for these guys, just to carry out a campaign of terror against people in that region, impose Sharia law, declare, Islamic caliphate, and make money out of it. Make money from the ransom that they get after they abduct people.
I hear you. But then why in the north and not anywhere else in Nigeria? Nigeria is a large country. It's populous. It's rich. So why the north?
So Nigeria is divided between the Christian south and the Muslim north. So Muslim is dominated by the north is dominated by Muslims. 98% of the north is Muslim, then the south is mostly Christian. So I think they are operating where their people where they can impose their beliefs. It's going to be difficult for them to try to impose Sharia law in southern Nigeria because it's 100% Christian, if you get what I mean. So Nigeria
Right.
is
I hear you. I hear you.
along that line, Christians and Muslims, equally divided. I think 50% each. Yeah, so I think that's I think that's why they're operating there in northern Nigeria, not in southern Nigeria.
I hear you. So then there could be some credence to claims that the people that are experiencing the brunt of this are the minority Christians in that region?
In northern Nigeria?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the Christians there are in the minority. So yeah, and like I did say at the start of the conversation, the attacks,
Yes.
both Christians and Muslims are affected during the attacks. Christian communities are attacked. Muslim communities are attacked. Clearly Christians in the north are in the minority. So yeah, I mean they are easily targeted.
Right. Right.
Because, of course, maybe because of their belief or because of the religion they practice and they preach. And there are other factors to consider, So there's been an ongoing, for many decades, conflict between cattle headers from the Fulani ethnic group and farmers, in southern Nigeria. So as a result of climate change, droughts, farmers and cattle headers in the north would, migrate with their cattle down south, to kind of feed them. And in the course of doing that, they encroach on farmlands owned by farmers in the south. So as a result of that, there's always clash. It is one of the biggest motives, in terms of like conflict in that region. So there are many cases of cattle headers who move about with AK-47 and assault rifle, attacking local farmers and the farmers Christians because they encroach on their lands in trying to feed their cattle.
So if I hear you correctly, I seem to understand that the conflict has different dynamics. One of which is ethnic, which is inter-community conflict. And the other one is being driven by the Islamic extremists, the Boko Haram and groups like that, terror groups. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. Not really ethnic. So I wouldn't say. So the cattle headers are from the Fulani ethnic group.
Right.
Fulani is one of the popular ethnic group, nomadic groups, operating not only in Nigeria, I think in West Africa, Mali, yeah. So there's normally friction and clashes between them and local farmers whenever they encroach on their farmlands, right? So you move with your cattle and enter into somebody's farm, and you destroy crops, you destroy what they've toiled for months to kind of put in place, and as a result of that, of course, any farmer would try to oppose you destroying their farmland. So when they try to oppose you, you kill them. So it's a big issue in Nigeria because there are no grazing reserves in Nigeria, even though the government has tried to create,
Right.
grazing reserves. So cattle headers move about with their cattle, entering people's farmlands to graze. So it's not, yeah, I wouldn't say it's kind of driven by ethnic.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's driven by ethnic. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's an Igbo with Yoruba, just resource. They fight for resources and kind of control and stuff like that.
I hear you. So then, why do you think the Nigerian government, as powerful and as resourceful as they are, has been unwilling or maybe unable to control this conflict or contain it? Who benefits from ongoing conflict in northern Nigeria?
Yeah, that's a good question. Who benefits from it? Yeah, I think the whole dynamic is complex and complicated. Why? I mean, so Nigeria, gets a lot of military assistance from the United States in terms of
Right.
weapons and arms to fight insurgency in the north, the armed bandits in the northwest.
Right.
And that has been to a large extent, they committed to the campaign against the terrorists in the region. I mean, they've made some gains. To be fair, they've made some gains in terms of trying to end this, but it keeps escalating, and that's where the question of who is behind it, who is profiting from this, is there like a motive, who is funding these guys? Because each time they come on social media and you see new arms, new attack trucks, and they display it,
Right.
for the whole world to see. So
Mhm.
so you keep asking. So the military has kind of attacked and decimated this group like some months ago, and now they
Right.
are resurfacing again with new
Mhm.
arms, new motivation to keep on their attacks. Yeah,
Right.
is a question that I wish I have the answer to. Not
Yeah.
not a security expert to say, like, to kind of go into the complex nature of who is funding, who is benefiting.
Right.
I mean, the whole definitely some. I mean, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say this authoritatively, but there's a possibility that some people are making profits out of this. The more the conflict lingers, the more there's need to budget for arms, there's need to budget for military personnel. So yeah, that's a big question that I wish I have 100% answer to.
Yeah, I hear that. Now, the next question would be, what kind of intervention are Nigerians hoping for? Because you hear them calling, oh, international community, help us, help us, help us. What kind of intervention are they hoping for? What kind of help are they hoping for?
Yeah, so after Donald Trump said he may take a military action if the government fails to fix this, I mean, opinion and debate in Nigeria were divided. So
Yeah.
some people want them to come, some people want American military to come. I mean, and they are open about it. They are open and loud about it on social media, on Twitter, kind of voicing their views about the whole announcement by Trump.
Right.
And those who are vocal about it and who want a military intervention are those directly affected, communities directly affected by the conflicts,
Right. Right.
mostly Christian communities that have been attacked, by the bandits and by the insurgents in northern Nigeria. Yeah, but from an official point of view, I mean, the government doesn't want the military to come. So they've been
Right. Right.
advocating and speaking in the media, traveling Western countries to kind of lobby and say, hey, we are trying to fix this, we are trying to address this. I personally, I don't want any American boots in my country. I wouldn't
Right.
want any military intervention. We know how it ends whenever they come. I mean, no country has ever remained the same whenever an American, you have an American intervention. I wouldn't want, I mean, they could intervene, through dialogue, through military support, through military assistance, basically, which
Right.
I've been doing for years,
Yeah.
and allow the government to maybe mount pressure on the government and allow them to kind of fix this. There's an internal issue. I wouldn't want an external force, for example, from the US coming to fix an ongoing issue in Nigeria. They could do that from the White House and not on the ground. Yeah.
I hear you. Now, this brings in a very interesting question from where I sit. Yeah, we have seen the diaspora from, say, Eastern Europe come together and coalesce around the conflict in Gaza. They have talked about what is going on in Ukraine. They have talked about what is happening, what is affecting countries in Eastern Europe has become a global issue because of the pressure that the diaspora communities from those regions have mounted. Now, when you contrast and compare what is happening in Africa, you see this conflict in Nigeria that is killing a lot of people. I don't know what the figures would be according to you, but we know that's affecting a lot of people. Think about Sudan. Thousands of Africans are dying at home, but the African diaspora is silent. Why do you think that is? And what can we as the African diaspora do differently to advocate for, our own people?
Yeah, I think Nigerians in the diaspora have been kind of speaking up against, this. For many years, they've been vocal about it. And of course, trying to use whatever connection they have to kind of lobby and, lobby foreign governments where they live to see how they can intervene. The little they can do. Lobby, speak against it. So whenever government officials from Nigeria are in their country, they could try to attend whatever events they're attending to kind of engage them, in that regard and ask them, hey, what are you doing back at home? People are dying, people are getting killed. Why can't we fix this? I think that's the little they can do. But yeah, diasporans in Nigeria have been doing that. Yeah, of course, some may feel like despite all they've done, to speak up and do this, nothing is happening. So you know what? I'm gonna leave this issue aside and focus on my life. So yeah, there's no. I mean, there are groups, there are pockets of group and associations of maybe Nigerians in the diaspora and all, but they all try to fight for their interests abroad.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the interest and the progress of the migrant community abroad. I think that's their main priority, even though they have families and relatives back in Nigeria and they try to see what they can, but there's little that they can do apart from advocating and speaking up. They can't fly back from wherever they are staying to.
Yeah.
So they can only try to maybe engage the foreign governments where they live, lobby and say, people are dying back in Nigeria. The government is not doing anything. Can you please help our people? That's kind of the sort of engagement that I think they can do. I mean, there are powerful diasporan communities abroad, for example, those who have been lobbying against the war in Gaza, and Ukrainian community in Canada or the US who have been trying to lobby and ask for support for the war in Ukraine. I mean, we've seen little impact from Nigerians in the diaspora who, in terms of the ongoing issues in Nigeria, the killing of people and the insecurity, we've seen little impact. But we've also seen results as a result of their engagement. But it's just too little. For example, if you refer back to the ongoing conflict or the war in Sudan, we see a lot of Sudanese migrant communities abroad trying to, speak up against that.
Yeah, you see, this is exactly what I'm trying to focus your attention on. It is that when conflict is affecting countries in Africa, we tend to coalesce around the issue based on our geopolitical interests. So if it's happening in Nigeria, then it's a Nigerian problem. It is the Nigerians talking about it. If it is happening in Sudan, as it is happening now, regrettably, where thousands of women and children are dying, it is the Sudanese community that is protesting. But when it happens in Tanzania just last week or the week before that, it is the Tanzanian community protesting. So what prevents us as the African diaspora from actually coalescing around issues affecting us as a continent? Because we are many, we are powerful, we have voices, we've got money. why are we not coalescing around these issues as a continent? Because they are affecting us collectively.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I think there's no continental voice abroad. There's no association of like, I mean, there's African association of this, but it is highly limited, I mean, when you come to universities, University of Toronto or University of Oxford, or, you have Association of African Students and, and this and that, or Association
Mm,
of Black Students, or, but there's no continental voice, abroad, in my own view, that could
right.
band together whenever there's a conflict happening in Sudan or the Congo to say, okay, there's a continental voice in there's a continental diaspora voice in Canada, for example. Let's come together and see how we can help. Or-
hmm
I think everybody's trying to live for themselves. Everybody's trying to.
But the question is, why not? Why not?
Yeah, that's a good
What
question.
prevents us as Africans from looking at our collective problems as one unit?
Yeah, I wish I have an answer to that.
I hear you. Yeah.
We have something like that. I think is going to be very impactful, very helpful.
hmm
I think that's what we should be looking at.
hmm
How Africa is large. I mean, we are not talking about 2 countries here. We're talking
Yes.
about more than 50 countries. So how we can have a united voice,
hmm
form a united front to tackle a common issue affecting us back in Africa. United
Yeah.
voice, united front
hmm
against a common issue
hmm
affecting us. But we don't have that.
Yeah.
Whose
I
fault
hear
is
that.
it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, the reason why I'm asking this is because you can see the geopolitical environment is changing in the sense that conflict drives a lot of us away from home. We're running away from something, and we come to Europe or America looking for safety. But these countries in Europe and America are now tightening their borders. They're closing out immigration. It can no longer be like a conflict in Congo. A busload of Congolese come to America and you're told, okay, welcome, we will protect you. So I asked the question because I'm looking forward and saying that we're heading to a situation where we can no longer run. We do actually have to start thinking about the obligation we have to our own countries to promote democracy there and prevent conflict and maybe help open up democratic space. What are your thoughts about?
My thoughts. So I'm just going to say that it is okay for people to run. It's okay for people to leave their home, leave their country and run to safer
Mhm.
grounds, to, safer places where they are protected, they are shielded from whatever persecution or attack they're facing. It's perfectly normal. It's happened in Europe during the World War, you have a lot of Europeans moving. That's why you have a large Ukrainian community in Canada, those
That's
who
right.
fled, and settled in Canada, some part of Canada.
Mhm.
Yeah, so people are gonna run whenever they feel threatened, whenever they feel their life is at risk, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Whether
Yeah.
they run and decide not to come back again to their home country, that's their own decision. I don't blame anyone for doing that.
Yeah. This question. Sorry, let me stop you a little bit. The question is not about blame whoever is running, but it's a question about recognizing that there is no place to run to. Soon enough, these doors will close. Then what happens? So don't you feel like, do we have an obligation as the African diaspora to do something to fix what is going on at home that is not favorable to us? Because of course, in the end, we want to go back somewhere. Those of us who do.
I think while the door is still open, people are free to run.
I hear that. I agree with you.
Yeah. And I don't think it's an obligation. Doesn't diaspora have an obligation? I think I would think about it more like a sense of duty,
Mm-hmm.
obligation, a sense of duty to intervene in issues like happening in their own country back home. Issues of insecurity, issues of
Mm-hmm.
political instability and economic instability, right? They have a sense of duty as patriots, as citizens of those countries, to kind of intervene and amplify voices, engage
Mm-hmm.
government, whether foreign governments, engage institutions that they feel can help.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's that sense of duty. Whether people are living up to that sense of duty is what is left to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe some people, they feel once they've left their country as a result of whatever issue they were facing back home and settle in a Western country, they don't have any business with whatever that is happening back home. I mean, they can do whatever they want for all they care. I think having common a common front, a
Right.
united front, kind of speak up and engage on important issues facing the continent would be amazing. We don't have that yet. We don't have a uh, Pan-African or continental voice or fronts that kind of comes together whenever there's a conflict, for example, or whenever there's election violence or political instability to say, okay, this thing just happened in Kenya, for example, or Tanzania. I think we need to speak up. I think we need to call out the government. I think we need to do this. It's basically citizens from those countries living in the diaspora that kind of do the engagement. So like you said, each country fighting their own battles. Nobody's kind of even though some people, I mean, Nigerians during the conflict in Kenya, Nigerians abroad have kind of, on social media, they were vocal about it, kind of speaking against police brutality. But the voice is little. There's little that the outcry would generate in terms of impact. And that is why a Pan-African continental voice is very important. And unfortunately, we don't have that now.
Okay. I had a very interesting conversation with a colleague, and he challenged me to actually think differently in the sense that when you look at Kenya, for example, where I am from, we have a very strong voice online. We actually change policy and we move motions online. People writing, young people saying, we have a voice. When you look at Nigeria, we have had these spats online incidentally about Nigerians and Kenyans spatting over an issue online. And we see that we coalesce around that issue, we debate it, we fight over it, and then we find solutions. But when it comes to issues of democracy and governance, issues that are very critical to us, because these are the bread and butter issues. It's about our security, it's about our food, it's about our people. We seem to delegate that power to other entities. In this case, the US, we want Europe to do something about our issues. We want powerful government to do something about our issues. Why is this? Why do we feel helpless when bigger issues confront us? Is this actually an endemic African problem?
Yeah, like I think we have, which is quite obvious, we have weaker institutions back in Africa, weaker but government institutions, democratic institutions that you feel helpless and powerless to initiate change or to push for change because no matter how hard you try to advocate to push, if the institutions are weak, your effort are going to come to nothing. And that's why I think they fall back on Western countries with so-called strong institutions kind of intervene. They move to the US, to Canada, and maybe Europe, the European Union, and, kind of try to engage them in terms of strengthening democratic institutions in Nigeria because they feel it works over there, but in Africa it doesn't work. And their cries and whatever they do online wouldn't amount to anything meaningful in terms of creating the change that they want to see. I think that kind of explains it, why they normally fall back on Western countries. But I think we need to come together instead of, always falling back on Western countries. We need to come together and fix our own problems, fix our own issues,
Yeah.
without wanting to, seeking the help of a big brother, so-called big brother to
I
come and
hear you.
help.
Incidentally, you bring in a very interesting concept. This idea of strong democratic institutions. Where are they? When I look at America, for example, I see their democratic institutions that they're crumbling.
Yeah.
When I went to journalism school, I think you and I both know, our trainers, those that taught us to become sensitive to institutional building and the constitutional democracies, came from the West. But clearly, these institutions are crumbling. US has its own problems. Canada has its own problems, bigger problems than our own problems. So then what is it going to take for us to wake up to this reality that the big brother is actually unable to handle his own issues, so he has no time for us?
True. That's why I just said now that we need to come together and fight our own battles and fix our own issues without relying on any external help. Can we do that? Yes, we can. Is it going to
Right.
be easy? No, it's not going to be easy, but we can, actually come together, identify issues, problems affecting us, and try and work towards fixing them within ourselves. We have solutions back there. The solution doesn't lie in the White House or in Ottawa, for example. The solutions are back in Africa. So we really need to come together, to identify those issues and fix them, have a meaningful meaningful conversations within us how to fix these issues. And I think it's gonna work. I think, yeah, is it going to work? I think it's going to work if we are honest about it without any ulterior motive and without allowing any external influence to come and divide us.
Interesting. Yeah, as we wind up, Patrick, let me ask you one last question. If you had something that you would want to say to the Nigerian diaspora, maybe, or the African diaspora as a whole, what would you say? What is your rallying call? What is it that we must do, or what shall we do about our situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I would say is that, I mean, wherever we are, no matter the situation, we should always remember home. There's a home.
Mm-hmm.
We all left our individual countries back home for whatever reason to fight for better lives.
Mm-hmm.
Western countries, we should always remember home and see how we can try to engage with respective governments and institutions back home to tackle the issues affecting us. It could be having a united front to tackle those issues, having a common voice to confront those issues. But I think it's very important as an immigrant, as a Nigerian in the diaspora, or as a Kenyan in the diaspora, we realize that, of course, we move abroad and make wherever we find ourselves our home. It could be Canada or the US. Um, despite the rise of anti-immigration sentiments, but
Right.
we still make those places our home.
Mm-hmm.
And we should just realize that we are coming from somewhere, and that is Africa.
Mm-hmm.
For our individual countries, and we must do all we can to see that Africa works, that our individual countries work, so that's because we can't run forever,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make our continent safe and
Mm-hmm.
build better structures and institutions that work so that, I mean, the continent used to be the pride for many people in the West. Growing political instability and economic instability and conflict like we see in Congo and Sudan and northern Nigeria,
Yeah.
it is increasingly becoming not desirable for many people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to visit or to invest. So that's why it is important we come together to fix and tackle our issues wherever you are in the diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say. We need to have a common voice to tackle those issues and make our continent better.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you, and I think that's a very important point to make. That Africa, as is, there is a saying that Africa powers the world,
Hmm.
but we seem to be imploding. We are powering everybody else to have a comfortable life, but we ourselves as a continent, we are dying. And a question comes to mind because the other day I was looking at the figures of what you call diaspora remittances in back home, and I saw that in Kenya, for example, in the very recent past, we are sending home close to $1 trillion. I mean, billions of dollars are going back home. But then the futility of that exercise is that how much money you pour into the Africa, into our families, into our homes, doesn't seem to make a difference because people cannot live comfortably when there's conflict, even when they have money. So I look at the futility of that exercise and I wonder what it is going to take for us to take drastic action about this. I ask because the other day I had an interview with a conversation with the Sudanese diaspora. And they're telling me what they do here is they coalesce together, they get funding, and they send that money home. But that money is a trickle in the bucket when you look at the challenges that we Africans are facing. So then, if there was a last word, the very last thing that you would say, what is it as we wind up?
Yeah, so talking about diaspora remittances, Nigeria sends like a whole lot of money back home. I don't have the figure, I don't have the numbers, but it's a whole lot, every year.
Mm.
The last thing that I would say is, yeah, I mean, no matter what you send back home and the And if the issues are still there, they haven't been fixed, I think it does nothing. Your financial contribution to folks, but back home, actually does nothing in helping to address the issue. If we don't fight, the elephant in the room, if we don't tackle the big,
Yeah.
the big issue
Mhm.
affecting us, it could be insecurity, it could be political instability or economic instability. And I think it's not even one issue, a whole lot of them. If we don't tackle those issues, home that we left, we left home to move to the diaspora. I mean, to move different countries to fight for better life, maybe economic opportunities and all that. We come back home. If we don't address those issues, we'll have no home to come back to. I
That's
think
right.
that's my more like my final point on that. We need to fix issues, critical issues affecting us so that, of course, I mean, one day you would decide, okay, I'm done with Europe, I'm done with the West, I want to go back home and maybe retire or live quietly in my country home. That scenario wouldn't happen if we don't fix those issues affecting us.
That's right. You're very right, because we say east or west, home
Yeah.
is best. So, yeah, that is where we leave it. Thank you so much for making the time, Patrick. Thank you for listening to us. If you like our podcast, please find us on YouTube or Spotify. Thank you for listening to us. I am your host, Wanja Gathu, and I'm saying goodbye for now till we meet again. Bye.
Yeah.